Hey friends, and welcome to the Happy Hour. My name is Jamie Ivey, and I'm your host every single week, and I'm so glad that you're here. If this is your first show to listen to, I want to say welcome. I really think that you're going to like it. I have some amazing women that join me every single week, and we talk about the little things in life, the big things in life, and everything in between. This week is episode number 45, and it's with my new friend Shannan Martin. I had never met Shannan before she came on the show, but you would have thought we were long-lost friends. We had a great time. Her and her husband Cory have adopted 4 children, one at the age of 16, and so we talk a lot about his story in here. Her and her husband both used to work big-time government jobs. Now she stays at home, and she's an author, and her husband's a jail chaplain. So we have a lot of fun talking about stuff. We talk a lot about what it means to find peace in the midst of the chaos. And if you're like me, sometimes life just feels chaotic, but yet we can still find that peace. And so you're going to love our conversation today. I want to say thank you to this week's sponsor of the podcast, Fund the Nations. Fund the Nations helps people fundraise for their adoption, mission trip, or cause by creating custom, low-cost t-shirts for them to sell. Their custom design work is always free, and they set it up where you pre-sell the shirts. So whether you sell 25 shirts or 2,500 shirts, you're guaranteed to make money off of it because every shirt you purchase has already been paid for. They've worked with organizations like Compassion International and Lifeline Children's Services and thousands of families just like yours. They help people raise over $1 million a year in fundraising, and they love to help you fund your calling. I told you guys before that I've used them, and they're fabulous. My brother is now using them to design a shirt that he's going to sell, and he's had so much fun working with their creative team to make different designs, and he gets to pick and have a voice in that. So if you're looking for a place to raise money and you want to sell shirts, which I personally think is a lot of fun because everyone loves a new t-shirt, check out Fund the Nations. You can find more information about them over on my website, jamieivey.com. Lauren Thomas over on Twitter, she asked me the question, which podcast is the one you mentioned that you talked through your whole adoption process? Lauren, I think that's episode number 8 where Julie Hayes interviewed me. So go check out episode number 8 if you're looking for that. Guys, send me a tweet. I love it. Jamie_Ivey. Find me on Instagram at Jamie Ivey. And I'd love it if you haven't, if you'd go subscribe to the show over on iTunes. That way it comes to you every single week. You don't have to do anything. And while you're there, leave a rating or review. And what that does is it helps other people find the show. And lots of people are finding the show because I have amazing guests. And so let people know that you love it. All right, guys. Hope you enjoy your day. Here is my friend Shannan Martin.
So how are you doing today?
You know, I'm doing well. I took my kids to VBS,
Nice.
which when they were little, I was like I found every VBS in like a 30-mile radius of Austin and signed
Right.
all the kids up. And then it kind of backfired on me. And like one summer, Caden got saved like at 3 different VBSs. They would call me, the leaders would call and be like, we have some good news. And I'd be like,
Oh,
And they would tell me, and then I would ask Caden about it, and he'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I know, clearly you don't, because you didn't really get saved. You just raised your hand.
right.
And, and so I was like, I don't think this is a good idea anymore.
That's
So
so funny.
now we have one in town that we go to, and it's great.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can't believe it because I have an almost 5th grader. No, I mean, he finished 5th grade,
Okay.
and he still went.
Good.
I know. I mean, I signed them all up and told them they had to go because I scheduled a ton of interviews during that time.
Right.
But I was fully prepared for him to be revolt against it,
Yeah.
but he didn't.
Yep. Awesome.
I know.
Yeah. So my oldest little kid is going into 5th grade. So
Okay.
I always like hearing stories. What's the name of your son who's the oldest?
Caden.
Okay, that's Caden. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I always enjoy hearing, you like to hear the perspective of those who have gone before you, even if just by a year.
1
It
year,
totally
baby. I know.
helps.
Yes.
It totally helps.
I know. I can't believe I'm going to have a middle schooler, which is beyond comprehension for me.
Right.
So yeah, we're super excited about it. I think I'm only going to like middle school. We shall see.
Yeah, I know. I think
know.
you will too. I feel
Yeah.
good about it for you.
Yeah, thank you. I like that. I think that we're really going to like high school kids. Aaron and I always say that. I mean, I know it's harder and they think they know everything,
Yeah,
but I think I'm going to enjoy hanging out with them.
I know. I feel that way too. I've
Mhm.
always been, I'm not a baby
No,
person.
me neither.
So I like it's totally I understand when my kids were babies and people would say, because that was hard for me. That was a harder time. And people that would say like, "Oh, you think this is hard? You just
Right.
wait. It's only going to get harder."
Right.
Well, I get that now in some ways. Like it's just different. It's
Yeah.
harder in different ways, but I like this better
Yeah.
already.
And how old are your kids? Tell me all the ages.
Okay, so we have Calvin is 9. He's going into 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Ruby is almost 9 and she's going into 3rd grade. Silas is almost 7 going into 1st grade. This is a
Okay.
lot of work
Yeah,
to think about this.
sounds like my family. Mm-hmm.
And then our oldest came to us most recently. So he is 21. His
Uh-huh.
name is Robert. So he's out of our house now, and living on his own. So that's like a whole other thing. And then we had a foster daughter
Okay.
for the past 6 months. She will be 3 this month, and she just moved back home on Saturday.
Oh, good for her.
I
I
know. So
know.
that's like we still are totally in the mode of like, and we have a 2-year-old, but
Uh-huh.
we kind of don't
Right.
exactly right now. But yeah, that's just a new change for us.
Oh my gosh, I feel like Shannon. So first of all, we're already recording if that's great with you.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Um, First of all, we've never met,
Right.
and I feel like just from what we've been emailing back and forth and reading your blog and even your first few sentences that we've talked about just now, I feel like we could record like 7 shows
I
of an
know.
hour with your life.
I totally well, and I totally feel that way too. Like I was, I we will not have trouble filling this hour. Let's just
No,
leave it at that.
I have a million questions right now just off of what you've just said this morning. So this is going to be fun. But
Yeah.
since we're just getting started and you and I have never met besides what we've seen online of each
Right.
other and emailed and Twitter and all that kind of Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Tell the listeners just a little bit about you. Like what if someone's like, "Hey, tell me 30 seconds of who you are." What would you say to that?
Wow.
I know
Well,
that's so
I
hard.
I know it's hard, but it's important. I'm big on like making introductions and that kind of thing. It's important. So, my name is Shannan Martin, and I live in northern Indiana, up close to Michigan, like Notre Dame area.
Are you from Indiana?
I'm from Ohio,
Okay. I was going to say you have an
southernish
okay.
Ohio.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do I sound different
You
than
sound
some other
like you
people?
have like a northern accent.
People tell me that a lot. I
Do
don't know.
I
It's
sound like I
my
have a Texan accent?
Yeah, I
Okay.
hear hear some drawl in you. I don't know. Like people tell me sometimes that I sound like I'm from Minnesota. I
Oh,
don't know what to make of that.
I have another girlfriend, Tara, who's been on the show, who's from Minnesota, and y'all do say some of the same sounds.
That's so weird. I've
Yeah,
never even been to Minnesota.
it's cold. I know that.
So, yeah, and it's cold here. Maybe maybe it's the cold
The cold
accent. I don't
thing does
know.
it to you. Okay, so
Yeah.
continue. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay, no, that's fine. I've been married for 16 years almost, and Cory and I met in college. We both went to a small Christian college here in Indiana. So that's how I ended up in Indiana. We've got, I just explained all of our kids. We've got kind of a conglomeration of people in our family. Like really, it keeps shifting and bending, and we really like that. But very unexpected. God has built our family in really unexpected ways, a little bit outside the norm. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
later.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been blogging for like a million years at Flower Patch Farm Girl.
Flower
Um,
Patch Farm Girl.
Flower Patch Farm Girl is the name of my blog, yes. And it's so funny because I started blogging soon after Calvin came home. So our kids are all adopted. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I should like be clear about that. So soon after our first came home, I started like a little Zanga blog. Did you ever do
Oh
Zanga?
yes, of
Okay.
course.
And so we were youth sponsors at our church, and the youth pastor, a couple of the kids and the youth pastor had these Zanga sites.
Uh-huh.
And he was trying to get me and Cory to get a Zanga. And I remember saying to him out loud, why? That is the most self-involved.
Right.
Like, who does that?
Who
Why?
just writes about their life and then
Right.
expects people to read it?
Yes. And I said that to him out loud. And also, but I ended up doing it at some point. And then we would, like, the people that read my Zanga were people that I saw like every day. So then
Right.
it was even a more funny, like, this is really before social media
Yeah.
was a
Oh,
big
Zynga
thing.
was forever ago.
It was like this would have been like I mean, 9 or 10 years
For
ago,
sure. Yeah.
which doesn't sound that long ago, but in the scope of this, it's
Yeah.
forever.
Uh-huh.
So I started my little Zanga blog, and then we moved into a farmhouse out in the country. And that's when I started like, maybe I enjoyed the Zanga thing. I would post like twice a month. I mean, I hardly ever
Yeah.
did. And it would be like 2 paragraphs, like, this is what we did today,
Right.
that typical thing. So I started to think that I might want a more normal actual blog. And I was sitting up one night, it was like right at the new year. And I remember I was sitting awake at like 1 in the morning because I'm a total night owl and trying to like type in different names. And so a lot of the names that I was trying were already taken.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, well, I live on a farm and I really like food. So I tried Foodie Farm Girl, that was taken. So I'm like, well, I also really like flowers.
There you go.
So I type in Flower Patch Farm Girl, it was available, and that is the end of the story. So the funny thing is, this is now 7 years later. I live in the city.
Right.
I mean, I kill all of the flowers. I cannot
Right.
keep flowers alive. But my name is, I've branded myself Flower Patch Farm Girl. It's kind of like an interesting dynamic that I've created for myself. But there you have it.
I love it. I love how
Yeah.
people come around to their names of their. I started blogging probably when we were in the adoption process it's our first son that we adopted, but he's like our third young, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. The first time we adopted.
Yeah.
And it was mainly just to like keep people up to date on where we were. And it wasn't even, it was like like an adoption something where you could have a page. I don't even remember what
Right.
it was. And
Yeah.
then I started blogging for real, and mine was called Dreaming Big Dreams. I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that long ago that I switched it. So, but yeah, and then just like 2 years ago or a year ago, I don't even know, I changed it to jamieivey.com, which is just easier to
Well,
find.
okay. So shannonmartin.com is taken.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've looked years ago, I looked. And so it's been taken all along. But was that hard for you
Do
to
they
like,
do anything over at shannonmartin.com?
no, it just says this site is under construction. It's been under construction for like 6 years. So
I
I
can't
don't,
tell you how to do it because someone did it for me, but mine was taken as well,
oh, it was.
jamieivey.com forever. But there was nothing there, like you said. And so
Right.
I emailed the guy that owned it a couple of years ago, and he said, no, we want it. And then I waited, and then I emailed him again, and he actually was like, yeah, I'm getting a divorce. It's my wife's or something like that. I don't
No
know.
way.
Yeah.
So
And
did you pay him for it?
well, I think he just gave it to us, which
That's
is
awesome.
crazy because
Yeah.
they can charge you a lot of money.
Right.
So
That's
I
what
would
I've
just
heard.
say find out, and I again have no idea how to do this. Find out
Right.
who owns it,
Yep.
and then email them.
Yes. I
And
think that's kind of on my list. It's something that I should at least try.
yeah, it's just someone told me that I should do that because it's just easier for people to find me, which I
Well,
agree.
totally agree. And the problem that I'm having now is that I'm writing my first book right now.
Yeah, let's talk about that first because I just saw that somewhere about
Okay.
you. So tell us about it, and then let's talk about why you need shannonmartin.com. But
Yes.
tell me about
Yeah,
your
yeah.
book.
Okay, so let me think. I don't know if I've ever like fully talked about this
Okay,
out
are
loud
you
in
in
an
the
official
midst
way.
of writing? Have you turned in a manuscript? Where are you in the process?
Okay, perfect. I am writing right now.
Okay.
My manuscript is due the end of October.
All right.
So
Okay.
I just signed the contract within the past month. So this is all really
This is
like,
all new.
it's all new. And so it's exciting. I have to keep like it's totally exciting, but I have to actively remind myself like, this is exciting. This is fun. You can
This
do
is a
this.
job.
It's like self-talk all the time
Right.
because all I'm thinking is, I mean, the first month or so was great, but then my kids are all out of school
That's what I
now.
was going to say. Yeah.
So
When did
that's
they
a
go
whole
back to
thing.
school?
They go back August 7th or something crazy like that. They go back super early.
So
That
you
we only get
literally
8
have,
weeks.
I mean, you can work during the summer. I mean, it just takes work figuring out, but you literally only
Right.
have 2 months of them at school before this is due.
Let's reframe that quickly. I need you to find a different way to say that.
Not you only. You want me to change that part?
You have like 2 whole months
That's
after the
much
kids go
better.
back to school.
That's much better.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so tell us, what is your book about?
Okay, it's not titled. I had a title, this is how it works for a lot of people, but I had a title in my mind. I'm not even going to say it because it's already been like like, yeah, we'll probably find a different title. So I guess that happens a lot. So I don't know the name
For
of it
sure.
yet, but it is a book about living a life of surrender.
Uh-huh.
And just kind of the idea of, in my mind, like the image that I kind of hold in my mind for my book is standing with your hands out.
Mm-hmm.
God can put things into your life. He can take things out of your life. And that's the kind of the posture that my husband and I are learning slowly to live from that position of, all we have is God's and he can give and he can take. And we just need to be, we need to be ready to live in obedience to that, whatever that might mean.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of the loose. And so in the book, I'm kind of talking about all the different areas of, how do you live that way with your family and with
Mm-hmm.
your finances and in your community and,
Right.
all those different kind of aspects of it.
Right.
So it'll tell a lot about our story. Like that'll be a big part of it, but it's not memoir. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's nonfiction, but it'll have a lot of stories from our life kind of pulled
Gotcha.
in. Yeah.
So what would you say would be talking about your book and like surrendering and literally living our life with those open hands? What would you? I have two questions for you. The first one
Okay.
is, what would you say that looks like for you right now? And my second question, which you can answer either way you want to first. My second question is, what is the biggest thing that you've had to like walk through with your hands open? Like maybe even like the biggest or the heart, like whatever stands out in your mind is like, wow, I never thought that we'd make it through that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what does that look like right now for you? So those are my questions.
Okay. If I forget
I'll come back.
some of your other ones,
I
come
got
back.
you. Yeah.
You're very good at this, just so you know.
Oh,
Those are great
well, thank
questions.
you.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, give me the first
Okay,
question again.
let's do this first. What does that look like for you right now?
Okay.
What are you standing here with
Yep.
your arms open, surrendering right now in your life?
Okay. So right now, just like literally right now, today,
Mm-hmm.
we're in a place where Avery, our foster daughter, just went home.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're kind of in one of those places of relative calm. And I mean that just as of, the past 2 days. So,
Right.
but we find that life doesn't stay in these places for very long. And so
Mm-hmm.
here's a little story to kind of illustrate that. Back in October, Cory and I we drove up to Michigan and stayed at like a really cute cabin and just for like 2 nights
Mm-hmm.
to sort of belatedly celebrate our anniversary. And we had the best time ever. It was just gorgeous. Like the leaves were turning. It was perfect. But we had a really hard last year. Like there was just a lot going on. And so the cabin had a hot tub. And so we're sitting out in the hot tub, looking up at the stars, and it's just so quiet and so calm. And we were having like these meaningful talks because we didn't have a million kids around
Right.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's important to do that. And it was so great. But I remember saying like something to the effect of, we survived the year. Like we got through it and, we pulled together and, we kind of feel like conflict now in our marriage tends to pull us together.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't always that way. But so we have become a really good team together.
Okay.
And so we kind of, we were just really reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly me, like Cory was mostly listening per usual. And I was like really, really reflecting
This
with a
sounds
lot
like
of
Aaron and I's
words.
reflection time as well. I do a lot of talking and he does a lot of
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It totally works
Right.
for us.
I'm a verbal processor, so
Me too.
Yeah.
And so I was just, just so relieved and like we did it, we made it. And this was the very end, like the last week or two of October. So fast forward, November comes and goes. And then December, we got a call from our oldest, Robert, he was living kind of in a place that's like jail, but not jail. It's called a work release center. And so you can go there and live and, but he could go to work every day.
gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And so he called and he's very, very much a part of our life and lives right here in our town. And so we see him a lot, but he called and said, "Hey Mom, would I be able to come home to finish the rest of my home detention?"
Mm-hmm.
And this was very unexpected. He had lived with us before,
Mm-hmm.
but this was really unexpected. And so it was one of those like, oh, like we just survived last year
Right.
when you lived with us for 6 months. And, and that wasn't the only thing, but there was a
one
lot.
of the things. Uh-huh.
And so, of course I was super excited about it on the one hand, but it was just like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
So he moved in like the week after, or a couple days after Christmas. And then 2 days after he moved in, very unexpectedly, we ended up with Avery,
The
the
foster daughter,
2-year-old.
2-year-old.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
the 2-year-old. So that's how our life tends to work. So, late October, we're like, oh, we survived. We
Right.
made it. We have
Uh-huh.
arrived. And then within 4 to 6 weeks later, our life is completely crazy again.
Right.
And so now we're going into winter, like we get brutal cold up here, brutal winters. We had, a 20-year-old with us, a 2-year-old, so that to me right now, I'm in that place again of like, okay, we did it. We got through that. And so right now I'm kind of just, positioned as life is good,
Right.
but I know that it will not stay this way long. But I don't know what that means. And so I have to be careful to not spend my moments of rest looking over my shoulder,
Right. I'm
like
always wondering, like,
what's coming. Yeah.
exactly.
Anytime things get too easy, I can be tempted to feel like we're missing something. We're not hearing something that we need to be hearing from God. We're neglecting something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really believe that that's true.
Right.
And so that's something that I have to, I think God in his grace gives us these moments of kind of quiet.
Yeah.
But I also believe I've learned, from my own life experience that they don't stay with us for long. I think God
Right.
wants us. I think he really wants us, really pulled to the edges of ourselves and, living a story that's bigger than ourselves. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think, when things start to really settle down, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know that God wants us to be really settled down for very long because, and maybe that's just my story,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that, the times when I'm really pushed to my limits, those are the times that I grow the most. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
times that I seek God the most. And all of those things can sound a little bit cliche, but
Right.
they're just true.
Yeah.
They're cliches because they're true.
So do you feel closer to God in the crazy? And when I say the crazy, it just means like, when I say crazy, I just mean like Robert coming back and then you
Right.
have a foster daughter and just everything was calm and then a storm. It doesn't have to be a bad storm, but do you feel
Right.
closer to God in the crazy versus in the quiet?
I think I do.
Yeah.
And and that might not always be the case. I would say just here lately, and even a little bit there for a while, a couple of months ago, things were so like I felt like I didn't necessarily have enough time or enough quiet to really
Mm-hmm.
feel my life.
Mm-hmm.
If that might sound weird to
No, that
say.
sounds I understand that.
I was feeling kind of numb and I
Mm-hmm.
was feeling kind of a little bit distance from God. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think sometimes we think that those times are bad and, that it's something we're doing wrong. I don't even think that it's real. I don't think that I was experiencing distance from God. I think I was just feeling like I was
Mm-hmm.
because my life was it was really crowded. And
Mm-hmm.
the way that God has created me and the way that I work, I need a little bit of space to feel my life. And so I wasn't having that. So I don't know. I mean, so that's a time where things were really intense and I did feel a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of distance. But I think overall, you know, I when I lived on the farm, those years of my mind were very, I had young kids and life was not blissful or easy or any of that, but it was a peaceful life.
Mm.
And that's where God really, really showed me his love for me. Like we lived there for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that time in my mind was just a beautiful time.
So can I interrupt you and
Yeah,
ask you this real quick?
sure.
Because I think someone might be listening and they have small kids, and you just said life on the farm, it wasn't easy or blissful, but it was peaceful.
Yeah.
And so someone is listening and being like, my life is so hard right now and I feel no peace. How did
Yeah.
you feel that peace in the midst of the hard of little kids and everything
Right.
that comes along? I mean, I tell my girlfriends that have little kids, I'm like, this is hard. It is hard work,
Yeah.
especially when you have so many so close, like you and I do, and so many people
Yes.
do.
Right.
It is hard and it is like a daily battle and sacrifice of yourself. So how did you experience that peace in the midst of the crazy and the
Well, and
hard?
there's part of me that when I say that, there's part of me that wonders, but did I feel peace at the time, or is that just like in hindsight,
Right. I
it
see.
feels peaceful? I think though that the time, okay, so my husband and I, our dream was to always buy a farmhouse and live out in the country. So when that happened for us, that was just a huge exhale.
Mm.
Like, this is what we've worked towards. This is what we've always wanted.
Right.
And we believed that we would live there forever. And so there was that element of like, okay, this is it. Calvin and Ruby are 17 months apart. So they are really close in age. And Calvin came home at 5 months old. And then Ruby came home at birth. So,
Okay.
so I was experiencing, when we moved to the farm, Ruby was just a year old. And so I was out of that really hard, like the infancy stage was hard for me,
Right.
in part because I also had a 17-month-old
Oh my
who
gosh,
was
yes.
barely walking and,
Yeah.
all of those things.
Uh-huh.
So by the time we got to the farm, Ruby was a year old, Calvin was, 2.5 or whatever. To me, that was a little bit of an easier phase. They were both sleeping, all of those things were good. I think being a mom for me of young kids and I'm an introvert. And so I think that has to come into play.
Yeah.
Because I'm a verbal processor, but I'm also like, I require a lot of time inside my head. And you just don't necessarily get that when you have two toddlers that are just talking all the time.
Right.
I mean, Calvin talked like an adult when he was barely 2.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do with that. I just remember thinking, what am I supposed to do with
Oh my
these
gosh.
babies?
I look back, Shannan, on my time. My two are 22 months apart, and so I'm like you. I had a newborn and a 22-month-old.
Yeah.
And I look back, and I'm just like, those were some of the hardest days because I literally felt alone, but not alone. Never alone, but yet so alone.
Totally.
And my husband traveled all the time, and so I would single parent every week. 4 days out of the week.
Oh my gosh.
So
No.
Aaron would come home from a trip and I would just start talking nonstop.
Right.
He would be like, I need a few minutes. And I'm like, no, I need a lot of minutes, So those days are so hard. They really are. Yeah.
Well, I remember feeling like, okay, like every morning, it's kind of like Groundhog Day.
Right.
And
It's exactly like Groundhog Day.
But every morning I would wake up, I would tell Cory, like, whine to him at night, like, okay, tomorrow, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do exactly what I just did.
Yes.
Exactly. And so you feel like you have this long stretch of day to fill. You don't know for sure how you're going to do it. But so back to the peace part, because I feel like I'm not really touching on that much. I really can, and this is going to make me sound like a total hippie, and I am okay with that. But I really started to really connect with nature when we lived on that farm. So we lived on 6 acres, and that was kind of my respite. Like, my whole goal in life was to get Calvin and Ruby to take a nap at the same time.
Oh, yes.
My whole well-being hinged on that.
Yes.
And Calvin was not a great napper. Like, he kind of phased out of napping early, but I tried. And I was like, every day you're taking a quiet time.
You will sit in your bed.
Yes, but that was a struggle. And I probably made it a bigger struggle than it needed to be. But every once in a while it would work. And so on those days, I would go outside with my little point and shoot camera. And I was like exploring this new piece of land that I didn't know. And so God kind of used that to wake me up to, his presence is all around us. His love for us is all around us. And I started to really feel like, these flowers that were popping up in the spring, I didn't know where anything was planted that first spring. And so everything that popped up, I was like, this is a gift for me. Like, this is just totally for me. This is mine.
Yeah.
And God created it. And so and from there, that's when I started blogging more, and then I started writing more. And so I think kind of my writing was the thing that kept me tethered to a world outside of raising these little babies.
Yeah.
And that was really meaningful for me. I was also working part-time from home during that time. And so I did have, some elements of, keeping my head in other games.
Right.
But it was just a quiet life. It was a simple life. We lived back a long lane. And so it was physically peaceful because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was quiet and, all of those things. So that to me was kind of where that peaceful element came from. And I just, during those years, I found my footing as a mom, and I started to kind of, I think we're doing this all the time, but I started to really understand myself more and who I am, in Christ more.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of those, like, I was practically born in a church pew. And so
Right.
a lot of this was more head knowledge and more theoretical. You hear things so much that they lose their impact. But
Mm-hmm.
so I was starting to kind of experience some of the things that I'd always heard, but they were becoming real to me.
Like finding
And
your
and
faith.
that's
I
what
mean, although
happened.
you've had faith, it's like finding your faith, you
Totally.
know?
Yeah.
I feel like that sometimes as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think too, when you talk about the peace, I mean, I just think back and I'm like, God's word is so clear that he is peace within the midst of chaos, you
Right.
know?
Yep.
And so I have to remind myself that all the time is that I can have peace when life seems crazy
Yes.
because it's what he is, you know?
Yeah.
He is that peace that doesn't make sense.
I
Um,
heard something really cool that this is not my words or my ideas, but I think about this all the time. But I heard a girl say, and I just carry this with me all the time, and what you just said reminded me of it. But she said, we always pray, we always ask God for peace, or, we ask him for patience or
mhm,
whatever these things are. But she said, Christ lives within us and the
mhm,
Holy Spirit is in us. And so we already, like, instead of asking God for peace, we can just thank God that
mm,
he is our peace.
mhm.
And I thought
Yeah.
that was such an interesting shift. Like, yeah, all the things that we need, he's already given them to us.
Yeah, he's given them to us. Yeah.
Yeah, like we already have them. Like that's a
Mhm.
really cool. It's hard. It's not always easy to necessarily walk in that, but
Right.
I think
And
that's
I
a
think
really
for
cool.
me too, like I think about like all the fruits of the spirit that have been given to me. Um, but which ones am I not like exhibit? Which ones am I not
Right.
choosing to believe and choosing? Like I think about, am I choosing to act this way towards my children, or am I choosing to act in the flesh? You
Yep.
know, and I
Yeah.
choose the flesh way too many
Right.
times,
Right.
and
I
then
know.
and then it's a constant cycle of forgiveness and grace and
Yeah.
choosing to walk in the spirit or choosing to walk in the flesh. And yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what would well, let's skip what I asked you earlier. I want to
Okay.
hear about Robert and how Robert came into your life. So
Okay.
give us a little bit, give us a little background there with what that looks like.
Sure. So we after we had been at the farm for about 3 years,
Which wait, stop real quick. Did y'all work this farm? Like, did you grow anything? Okay, it
no,
was just like a
no,
place that you
it was
lived.
just like a pretty place to live. We had, it was kind of cool because one of the farmers that lived down the road kept
Uh-huh.
his horses and ponies in our pastures. We had pastures, we had an orchard, like we had all these things, but we are not farmers.
Okay, okay.
So we got to live kind of the quasi life without any of the work. It
That's
was
what I want to
wonderful.
do. I want to do
Right,
that too. Yes.
right. We had to mow a lot of grass, or
I
Cory
can
did,
do
but that
that.
was,
I'm okay
yeah,
with that.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, back
so
to Robert.
so like 3 years after it's really hard for me, like, all, how life is, like every story is webbed with other
For
stories, so I'm
sure.
trying to figure out the best place. My husband, when we lived on the farm, worked for a United States congressman,
Hmm.
and we had lived in Washington DC for a while, both had careers in politics, so I was working from home but for the Department of Health and Human Services in DC, so we
Okay.
both had these political jobs. We brought Silas home, our youngest, from South Korea, right around the time that we were feeling God's stir in our hearts that we would probably be selling our farm. And that was a huge, like, we could do like 12 podcasts about that time in my life.
Okay.
But just know that that was like the head scratcher of the ages. I mean,
Okay.
it was so beyond anything we thought was ever going to be asked of us.
Because
And
this was your dream. I mean,
this
this
was
is
our
what you had
dream.
worked for.
This was our dream, and we came to it in a really haphazard, like, this was a God thing. You know how people
Hmm.
say that, but it was
Yeah.
very much orchestrated by God, and it was the desire of our hearts. And so it was hard to understand why God would ever ask us to lay that down,
Right.
because we believed at that time that our job was to be good Christian people who kept our family safe, who was, we were good with our finances, we had good jobs. Like, we had a very skewed perspective of what was asked of us as Christ followers.
Hmm.
And we really thought that we were doing all of the things right. Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
we're living out in the country. Like, doesn't God want all of his people to live out in the country?
Well, I
And
want to
that,
live in the country. I want to
right.
live on a farm, that's for sure.
Well, and I'm
But
kind
you
of
just
I'm
had
I'm
this,
exaggerating a little, but
but
you
I
know what
know,
I
but
mean.
you
Like,
had this like safe world. You're
Yes.
raising your kids right. You're teaching them about
Yes.
Jesus, and everything is good and
We're
comfy and peachy.
right. Yeah,
Yes,
we're
I get it.
saving our money. Like
Uh-huh.
we're, all the
Yep,
like we're Dave Ramsey people. I
for
mean, all
sure.
of those things.
You're set for retirement. Everything is just good.
Right.
Okay.
Everything's swimming along. Like we're kind of living the Christian American dream, and we believed that that was exactly what was required and
Mm-hmm.
asked of us.
Yeah. And then,
So,
dun
and
dun dun.
then and then we flew to Korea. So in the midst of this tension of like I remember saying all the time, like God wants us to sell our house. And Cory would be like, no, no, no. And like, because he knew that I wanted him to say, no, he doesn't. And so, we didn't know what was going on. We flew to Korea, brought Silas home. He was 18 months old, and he was a heartbroken, devastated baby.
Mm.
I mean, he was just leveled. Like it was so, it was the most painful thing any of us have gone through was the day that we
Mm.
kind of brought him into our family, beautiful. And we would never do that differently. We would never take it back, but it was much more painful than anything we could have expected.
Yeah.
And so we came home with this heartbroken baby in the midst of this, we were already in a place of kind of turmoil about, where our future was headed.
Mm-hmm.
Within a month of bringing Silas home, I worked under a government contract, and the administrations had recently changed. And so this was not super unexpected, but the contract I worked under was like cut. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was basically, my job was over, but it was part-time. And we realized pretty quickly, I am not going to be able to work at all, even though it's from home and part-time. Like Silas is
Because
going
of
to
your kids,
require,
right?
yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is a different game. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing, and that's fine. But so my job was half of our income. So
Gotcha.
half of our income is gone
Yeah.
right when we bring baby number 3 home.
Mm-hmm.
So less than a month after that, Cory called me from work one day, and like the total TV cliche, are you sitting down right now?
Okay, that's always good. Mm-hmm.
That I've never gotten that call. Like I've never had anybody actually
Right.
say that to me before,
Right.
but you know that it's bad.
Uh-huh.
So he had gone into his office that morning and turned on the TV and saw his boss, the congressman, was resigning from office.
This really happens.
It really
I'm
happened.
like, this is how it shows in the TV show. People find out.
It really happened.
Can you
And
say who it was or no?
I probably just don't need to.
Okay, there we go. We don't need to, like, that sounds good. Look at me being nosy. Okay, go ahead.
No, if it was, it's
Nope,
totally
nope.
fine. You can find it.
Go
But
ahead.
I will say, like, it was like a scandal. Okay.
Oh,
So a
no.
congressman from Indiana is involved in a scandal. And my husband worked
Oh,
at a pretty,
everyone's going to Google this. Like, I'm
right.
going to as well. Okay.
Totally.
What year
So
was this? Sorry, Shannan.
I don't even remember. I don't
I'm so
remember.
nosy. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
So I mean, it was like I started bawling, and I'm not a super emotional like worrier, but I started bawling, and we didn't know for sure what was going to happen. But what happened basically was you understand now that you see stuff happen like this on the news, and
Right.
people mess up. I mean, this man is a good man.
Mm-hmm.
His wife is a wonderful woman. I mean, they were going through hell. And he made a big mistake, and he was paying for it
Right.
publicly. But there was a whole cast of other people that were having their world rocked because they were all without jobs now. Like I had never thought through that before
Yeah. I mean, that
until
just
it's
doesn't
happening.
even, yeah.
So and
So
it worked out
literally,
okay.
literally
Yeah.
that day, he sees this on TV and he knows I do not
Yes.
have a job.
Well, we didn't know for sure. We kind of knew he didn't have a job, but we didn't know the timeline. It was crazy. Cory worked in a pretty high level position. So it was just kind of, it's not like he was like the aide to the aide to the aide that saw it on TV. Like you're like, this
Right.
maybe should have happened in a different way.
Right.
And
And by the way,
so,
I've already Googled it and I know who it was.
okay.
There you go. Just to get that out there.
Yes. And I would do the same thing. Just, I have to always say like, there's no ill will between us and this
Congressman.
person,
Right. Mm-hmm.
totally not.
Yeah.
We wish them the best. And I think things are going much better for them
Good.
now.
I'm glad. I
Um,
actually worked in radio when this happened.
okay.
And if I'm right about who it is, the radio was brutal
Oh, I'm sure
to
it's
this
happened.
person.
It has happened again and again. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of that same old story, and
Mm-hmm.
but it is. I mean, it's just, it gets so ugly,
But I
and
also know that media, they portray people however they want to,
oh yeah,
and they will ruin you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Carry on. He
So,
saw it on the TV. Don't know if he's out of job.
so what happened was we soon found out that he had like, I forget what it ended up being, but he had time to, close up the office. He worked in the congressional office. So he worked here in an office in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the only person that really ran that office. So we had like a couple of months to find a new job. Like they all stayed on payroll for, I
Gotcha.
forget how long it was, but that was great. So it wasn't like, as of today,
Right.
you have zero income.
Exactly. Thanks for working for us.
Right. But so my husband ended up transitioning into, and this was a big shift for us because he had worked in politics for like 10 years. He ended up working in community development and fundraising for a nonprofit alternative high school.
Okay.
So huge shift. So now we've gone from like federal politics to a local nonprofit.
Okay.
And he's not a teacher. He wasn't in a teaching role with the students, but the day before his official start day, he went and did a work day. So the kids at this school are kids who, for whatever reason, cannot thrive or function in a public school.
Gotcha.
So these are like basically like the wild kids, like troublemakers, whatever. And so he came home from this work day and said, I connected with this one kid. I don't know why. Like, I'm not sure what it was about him, but you know how that goes.
Right.
And so that kid was Robert.
Okay.
He was a student at the Crossing where Cory worked. And so over the next couple of years, long story short, we did end up putting our house on the market. It took like forever to sell. So while we were still there, Robert would come over for dinner a lot. At one point, we asked him if he wanted to move in with us, and we were so like, we're going to ask him to live with us. We have 6 bedrooms in this farmhouse.
Okay, well, stop just for a second.
Yeah,
just asking a random kid to live with you. Who was he living with? Did he have parents?
Hey, that's a great question. He was essentially living homeless, so he was staying with people, but he had no
family,
no strong. I mean, no
ties.
family. Obviously, everybody has family somewhere, but he had no family ties, and no stable family ties at all. And so we talked to different people and said, we feel like we're going to ask Robert to live with us. And Jamie, almost every person we talked to said no. Why would you ever do that? That is a terrible idea.
You have young kids.
You are putting your kids at risk. This, and Robert is, he's like 6'4". He's black. And I don't think that it was always like he's black. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
But I think it was a combination of a lot of things that people did not know him, but were automatically worried about him.
Looking back, do you see that maybe, I mean, obviously if these are your friends, it's out of love, but looking back, do you think, you're now a few years into this, looking back, do you think, okay, I can see how they might have been a little worried? Or do you look back and be like, they didn't even give it a chance?
Right. In my most gracious moments, which don't come often enough, but I can recognize that there was a time that I probably would have said and thought the same things.
Okay. So you're giving them grace and showing God has changed me in a lot of ways, but I could have said that same thing.
On my very best days, I'm giving grace to that.
Right.
But on the other days, it just frustrates me. And I just feel like as Christian people, we just have to do better.
Yeah.
We have to get on board. We have to, live the call of the scripture, which says you give people a home. And I know that there are some people, I mean, we are not obviously completely reckless people. We were not pulling people in off the street and offering them to live with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we felt like God was telling us to do this. And so we were acting in obedience to that. But Christians around us were basically saying that we were wrong.
Right.
And so God used that time to kind of, pull. That's when Cory and I started to really pull together because we had this kind of these common missions. And we knew, that was kind of a big moment for us to realize we hear from God and we hear from God alone and we hear from God together. And it doesn't matter if nobody else thinks we're right.
How old was Robert?
He was 16 at the time.
Okay.
So we came to him and asked him to move in. Like, it was our big moment. And he looked at us and was like, no, why would I want to do that? Like, he was immediately like, I mean, he loved living on his own and answering to no one.
Well,
and we didn't really know that. Like, that was so foreign to, I mean, we were just like, oh, he needs a family. He needs a home. He needs love.
Yeah.
So he turned us down cold.
Yeah.
And so we moved to the city. Around the time that we moved, he got arrested. And it was one of those things that we kind of always thought might happen.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of just a ticking time bomb. And he had disappeared for a while. He was always like dropping out of the crossing,
Yeah.
then coming back, then getting kicked out, then coming back. And so he had completely disappeared for like 7 months, and it was
He was
terrible.
a 16-year-old living on his own with no family ties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, he may have been 17. I don't know. But so he went to jail, and so we got connected back with him then. And at the point that he went to jail, I was like, well, this is wonderful because I know where to find him.
Yeah.
And I can go there. I had never been in a jail. Cory had never been in a jail. But so we started visiting him. We went to all of his court hearings. We were always the only people there at any of them. We were his only visitors in jail. And he started writing us letters, and we put money on his book so he could call us. And so over the 6 months that he was in jail, God just made him a part of our family. And at one point he said to me, would it be okay if I called you mom and dad? And I was like, yes, like I had thought of him as my son for a while already, but I probably wouldn't have pushed it. And so then he was sent to prison, and he went to prison for maybe 6 or 8 months. I don't remember. And so, while he's in prison, we visited him every 2 weeks. He's got twin boys. So we'd take his babies to the prison. And when he got out of prison, he was released on home detention. So with an ankle bracelet. But he had nowhere. So, it's home detention because you go to your home, but he didn't have a home.
Right.
And so Cory and I had the discussion of like, well, this is where things get real.
Yeah.
He's our son. And if he's our son, and there was no question in our minds, but it was just one of those, you have to put it on the record. You have to have that talk. And so he moved in with us. He came home, and we made him a room in our basement. And so he moved in with like his cigarette behind his ear and his ankle bracelet on his ankle. And it was a hard, I think he was here for about 6 months, or I don't know, 10 months. It was less than a year. It was a really hard time. It was really fun, wonderful, beautiful time. But I mean, it was mostly like underneath all the fun stuff was just like, this is hard.
Yeah.
Like none of us know how to do this. He didn't know how to have parents. At this point, he was, 20.
Yeah.
And so this kid that's raised himself suddenly at the age of 20 has parents with like rules and expectations. And we were always just trying to figure stuff out. Cory and I were just screwing stuff up all the time, going to him and apologizing all the time. I mean, God just used that to show us our own mistakes more than anything. So, yeah.
Well, and when you're talking about earlier, when you're talking about how crazy this seemed and everything, hearing your story about how you had dreamed this life on a farm and you had this farmhouse, and God really used that place to show you him and bring you peace. And then he asked you to let it go. And then he asked you to bring in a 16-year-old boy with no family. I just feel like that has to be God, because you're listening to him all along, kind of surrendering, like you talked about, with your hands open. Okay, here's our farmhouse. Right. Okay, here's our safe family. Okay, here's like, I have a 19-year-old now, all of these things. And, I think that people are listening are going to be like, oh my gosh, that sounds awesome. She's amazing. She's great and everything. But it's probably been really hard as well.
It's been hard. It's been totally hard. But I'm so, I want to be quick to assure people we've done a lot of this really poorly. This has been, I think we in part knew that these things were God speaking to us because we would have never known to choose them for ourselves.
Right.
None of this would have been our idea. And I'm always thankful that God kind of rescued us from this life we thought we wanted, because we thought we had everything we wanted, and we were wrong in almost every case. I mean, it started with adoption. I would have thought that I would have preferred to give birth to kids, the quote normal way. I was never able to get pregnant. I mean, that was just an unexpected. And so now that was the first real big time where God was showing me, like, you think you want these things, but trust me.
I have something better.
Trust me that I know you. I know you so much better than you know yourself. And I know what you really want. And you just need to give me time to show you that. So, yeah, I mean, so the other part of the interesting story is that, through Robert and through him being at jail and all of those things, Cory is now the chaplain of the jail. So that's his job now. He's the full-time, like that's his work. He goes to that jail every day. And neither one of us had ever set foot in any jail ever. And so that's kind of cool. We tease Robert that he's kind of the reason, but it's totally true.
Right.
And that is just, again, like to go from, the job that Cory used to have. And he's like, so like rolls out of here every day in his jeans and his polo. And
right.
he had a big, crazy, ridiculous beard for a while because he could,
right.
And he just loves these men. These men in the jail have become his friends. And that it's like, this is what he was made to do. This was it. So it's pretty cool. And that's where those are things that are, they sound good and they sound exciting maybe and fun, and they are. But what has come with a lot of that is like, our income. Let's not even go there.
Right.
Like things have changed so much for us now. Like we live in a small house, in a neighborhood that many people would consider kind of on the wrong side of the tracks. And, our kids go to the public school at the end of our street that's a Title I. It was when we got here, it was labeled like a failing school. Like, so you give and you take and, everything feels kind of upside down.
Yeah.
I never knew that this would be the life that God wanted for me, but I'm grateful every day,
I love, love, love stories where people say what you just said. Like, I never knew that this is what it would look like, but I love it, and I'm grateful for it. And it's fun to look back, I'm sure, on your life. It's the same I do with mine, and people who are listening probably think the same thing. It's fun to look back and see the trajectory of your life move in ways you never thought it would.
Yeah. And the way that it all kind of fits together. And that's why it's hard for me to figure out, like, what is the starting point? And that can even be tricky for me when I'm writing.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to separate, these different elements. In my mind, they're all like a big, like a really pretty knot.
Yeah. That's all connected.
Yeah. It's a beautiful knot, but it's still like, it's hard to pull it to separate things out.
Right. So one story always intertwines with the other stories.
Right.
Love that. I love it so much. Okay, Shannan, I always ask, and I don't remember if I told you this or not, so hopefully I'm not pulling you off the cuff here.
Okay.
I always ask my guests two things at the very end. Number one is what they're reading, and number two is what are three things that you're in love with right now? Did I tell you about those at all?
No.
Oh, man. Fail on my part.
No, that's okay.
Okay, what are you reading? That should be easier.
Oh, my word. I mean, so many books. I read a lot of books at the same time.
You're one of those. Okay.
I didn't used to be. I used to, like, even as recently as 2 years ago, my friend Emily Freeman reads a lot of books at a time. And I remember thinking, like, that is so weird. How do you do that? How do you not get confused? And now I am the worst. I don't know how it happened.
You read lots of books.
I read lots of books, and I think it's because I used to not read a lot of nonfiction, and now I read mostly nonfiction. And so I think, like, I don't know that I could read multiple novels at the same time.
That would be hard because all of the stories and characters,
So, but I usually have some fiction somewhere in the mix. But then I have So
what are you reading
right now? I am reading. Let me think about this. I was just telling my friend last night. I'm cycling, like I tend to start a bunch of books at the same time and then I finish a bunch of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So I just finished Scary Close, Donald Miller's book.
I have not read. I have it. I haven't read it.
It was good. It was different than his other books, but I liked it. Okay. Totally. Like, have you ever heard of Tattoos on the Heart?
No.
Jamie? Okay. It's my favorite book in the entire world.
Really?
Absolutely.
When someone says that, I immediately have to go get it.
I do not ever reread books. I don't like to watch movies over. I don't like to read books over. But I have read that book multiple times. But here's my disclaimer.
Tattoos on the Heart or of the Heart?
Tattoos on the Heart. It's by Gregory Boyle.
Okay.
It has a lot of bad words in it. And so I have to I don't know. Is it okay that I just said that?
I think I cussed on last week's episode recently. So yes, you're fine. Which is real people here.
I mean, I read books with bad words and we watch shows with bad words and we spend a lot of time with people who say a lot of bad words. And so that's just the world that I live in.
I've been known to say a bad word once or twice.
Okay. So just know that I never want to some people don't like that. And I respect that. So, but it is. And so the interesting thing about Tattoos on the Heart though, is it's like a faith book.
But so it's not written by, is it written by a Christian?
It's written by, he's a Jesuit priest who
Okay.
works with the gangs in East or like some part of LA.
Okay.
The Homeboy Industries, I don't know if you've ever heard. It is amazing.
Okay. I'm going to
But
get it.
so that's my favorite book ever. So I just read a book that was similar to that called Wanted about a jail chaplain.
Okay.
And so I loved it. It was awesome. It also had a lot of bad words because
Uh-huh.
when you spend time with people in
Get
jail,
it.
I don't
Got
know,
it.
like
Yep.
that's just the way it goes.
Hmm.
So that was great. I just finished a book called Never Say No, a parenting book.
Oh, okay.
It's by the parents of the guys in Switchfoot,
Oh, okay.
Mark
Foreman.
and Jan Foreman. Yeah,
Okay.
fantastic. Loved it.
Okay.
And I think Corey's going to read that now. I just finished a novel called The Vacationers, and it was just a random, like a friend of mine had time left at the library, and so
Yeah.
she passed it along to me, but it was a good read, a good summer read. Um, I think I'm going to start, so we're going on our first family vacation ever this
Uh-huh.
Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm really like stressed out about what books because I don't read on a device. Like I read actual books
Me
still.
too. Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm going to read All the Light We Cannot See. Everybody keeps saying that
I see it as
I
well,
need to
and I
read
haven't
it,
read it. Yeah.
but it's big. I'm like, that's kind of a big,
I
heavy
know.
book to trek to Florida.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to take that. Gift from the Sea. I'm reading that right now. Anne Mara Lindbergh.
Okay.
It's a really small book. It's really beautiful, though. I'm really enjoying that.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah,
Okay, you
those are
are
just a
reading a lot.
few.
I love that. I have not read any of those, and so
Yeah.
I will add them all to my list.
Okay.
That's so good. Speaking of Emily Freeman, she's coming on my show in a
She
couple.
is.
Yeah, and I've never met
Love it.
her.
She's so fun. She's
Awesome.
one of my favorite people.
That's great. I've never met her. I've listened to her podcast. She's been on a show that I listened to once. So yeah.
Okay. She's got a great laugh too. Try to make her laugh.
Okay, I will try. That will be my goal on the show to make her laugh. Okay, and can you think off the top of your head 3 things you're loving right now? Like 3 things you would text your girlfriend and say, you have to see this, do this, watch this, listen to
Okay.
this, buy this, whatever.
So we just finished a Netflix show called The Red Road.
Okay, I haven't even heard about this.
Oh my word. And again, we have kind of maybe some liberal
Uh-huh.
media leanings, but it's really pretty. It's kind of suspenseful. Like it's
Okay.
not dark. Like some stuff that we watch can be kind of dark. It's
Mhm.
not dark and like I don't know. It's suspenseful is the best
Okay.
way to put it.
The Red Road.
It's
Okay.
so good. It's only 6 episodes long. I think I loved it a little bit more than Corey did, but we both loved it. And I keep telling people like you have to watch The Red Road. It was so compelling and so good.
It makes me think of Red Rum from
Oh,
Remember The
yeah, yeah,
Shining?
yeah. Yes.
Isn't that what they said when they did their finger like that?
Yep.
Ooh,
Yep.
I can get freaked out just thinking about it. Okay.
Like this show has parts where I would be like where you're yelling at the TV, run, turn
Okay.
around.
Okay.
But it's mostly, I mean, it's a very well written, well acted, it takes place near an Indian reservation. It's just really different and interesting and really, really good.
Okay. Red Road.
And what else am I loving?
What are
Oh
you
my
loving?
word. I am loving.
I just caught you so off guard. I'm so sorry I didn't send you that. I don't even send out questions to my guests if people are wondering. A lot of people do podcasts. They send the guests all the questions they're going to ask. I don't do
No,
that at all.
I like being surprised. I always love chips and salsa. That's my
Yeah.
thing in
Okay.
the whole world.
I
So
am-
that's always at the top of my list.
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay, that's good.
You caught me off
I
guard.
failed
Yeah.
you on
Oh,
this.
here's one.
Okay.
Here's one. A friend of mine sent me this. I think it's by like L'Oreal. I'm not a big makeup person, but she
Okay.
sent me the coolest thing. It's like those like little mascaras that you brush on your eyebrows,
Oh, yes.
which is weird, but I
Uh-huh.
have my eyebrows are like really almost invisible. And so she sent me this and like, try this. And it like makes them thicker.
Oh.
It's so weird. Do you have
Eyebrow
like,
thickener.
it's not like, it's just kind of like a gel, but it looks totally normal. When you're brushing it on, you're like, oh, this looks like I'm painting gold paint on my eyebrows. I don't know. That's the totally weirdest thing I could have ever said. But it is kind of revolutionary. I really do like it.
Okay, I love that. I just started eyebrow therapy. No,
What?
not therapy. That's a stupid
Oh,
word.
I was like,
Not
what?
that's not it. Eyebrow rehab. There's this one of my girlfriends has been going to this new lady. I have to get my eyebrows waxed. I have my entire life because I will have a unibrow. There's
So
that
you
for
have
everybody.
like thick brows.
Not necessarily. Well, I guess I don't know.
Okay.
I just got a lot. I'm just
Well,
got a lot
you've
of
got
hair.
dark hair,
Yeah,
right?
dark hair. whatever. So she started going to this new lady who's like helping her eyebrows get how they're supposed to be, whatever that might be. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go. And it's a little bit more expensive than my normal lady, but she's having me like grow out my eyebrows a little bit more in the middle.
Oh.
Which is kind of hard for me because I just want to get in there and pluck it all out.
Yeah. When it's growing in, it's hard. So she's like your eyebrow coach.
Yeah. So she's like coaching me. She's like, it needs to go in further. Your eyebrows need to be longer.
That's amazing.
So she's helping me, and it's hard because I just want to go pluck them all, but I don't touch
them.
Well,
don't.
I know.
No.
So I'm going once a month, and she is telling me that in a while they're going to look better.
That's awesome. Oh, here's
I don't even know why I'm concerned about my eyebrows, but whatever.
Well, we all kind of are at some level.
Yeah.
I love the band. I'm loving, obsessed with the band right now. Trampled by Turtles.
Trampled by Turtles?
Trampled by Turtles.
Is this a real band? That sounds like a really weird name.
Do you like, I mean, it's kind of like folk rock, maybe. I mean, like Mumford & Sons or Avett Brothers, like music
I
like that.
Those people. Uh-huh.
Like they play fiddle super fast.
Okay.
But it is the coolest. Like look them up on YouTube or whatever. Watch some of their. Cory and I went and saw them live a month or so ago, and it was just the best. It was the best concert I've ever been to ever.
Okay, that says a lot. That says
so
a lot.
Good.
I went to Garth Brooks recently and said that was the best concert I've ever been to.
Well, yeah, Cory has seen him a few times and said he's
an amazing
in a league of his own.
Yes. Yeah.
Like such a showman.
Yes.
And so it's way different. Like this is a much smaller,
for sure.
They play small venues, but they are so good. I mean, that's one of the things I keep telling everybody. You got to listen to them.
Okay, I'm going to look them up, and I'm going to tell my husband because he's the music person.
Yeah, let me know what you think.
Yeah, I am not a music person, but anyhow. Okay, though you did so well coming up with 3 things on the fly.
Well, thank you.
That's the only question I send guests, and I forgot to send it to you. Oh,
that's okay. Okay.
You don't even need my questions. You're so good.
I got
You're so
this.
good. Okay, and I think that we're both going to be at a Loom together this fall.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I know, I'm excited. I've never been to a Loom.
I haven't either.
Okay, there you go. It's a party.
So let's grab lunch or something while we're there.
For sure. It'll be so fun to meet live and in person.
Totally.
Yeah. Shannan, thanks so much for coming on the happy hour.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was fun.
We'll have to do this again in a couple months because
we've got more to talk about.
We have a lot more to talk about. So
that sounds great.
It was so fun. Thank you so much for being on here. You were amazing. So much fun. Love
All right. Thanks, girl. Okay. Have a good day.
All right, guys. There it was. Episode number 45 with Shannan Martin. She was such a joy to have on, and I really could have talked to her for like another hour or two. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you wanted any kind of links or anything that we chatted about, check out my website, jamieivey.com, and I make show notes for every show. So you can just go over there, search by her name, search by any guest that you've listened to, and there'll be all the links that we chatted about. Once again, I want to say thanks to Fund the Nations for sponsoring this episode. And if you would like to sponsor an episode, send me an email and I'd love to chat with you about it. Also, I want to say thanks to you guys for sending in some questions. I told you I was going to get to answering them, and I am. I'm going to answer some of them with some of my upcoming guests, some of them through a blog post, and some just here on the podcast. So I'll let you know when that happens. Jenny, thanks for leaving a comment. She told me that she's been listening to my show during like her mommy time while she walks for an hour on the beach. And can I just tell you that I would love to walk for an hour on the beach? So you go, girl. I love that so much. Guys, thanks for listening. I hope you have a fabulous week. Summer's going amazing here. I'm swimming at the pool with my kids all the time. And yes, I'm actually playing with them. Someone asked me that because from the conversation with Melanie Dale, she talked about how she plays with her kids first and then she reads. And I decided I was going to do that. And I took my kids to the pool this week and I played with my kids. And my oldest son, who's 11, he was like, Mom, that was so fun. Can you play with us more in the water? And again, I was like super excited that he loved it, and I felt a little bit guilty because obviously I don't play with him enough. So anyhow, I'm enjoying summer, loving the pool, loving my kids. I hope you're having a great summer as well. And guys, I'll see you back next week. I have amazing guests coming up. Winter Pitts, Jesse Connolly, Susie Davis, Jillian Lauren's going to be here eventually, Emily Freeman, some great stuff happening. So look forward to it. Guys, have a great day, and thanks for listening.